Now that we have our floors on the inside of our building created, we can now modify the bases of our columns and our walls. You can see that I haven't added the exterior floors yet. We are just tackling what's the main structure, okay? So in the last video, we talked about using Revit to do its own math. Like, you don't have to do that math. So let's zoom into some of these walls here. And we're going to assume that the base of the wall, the bottom of the wall, which also represents the top of the footing that we'll model a little later, we're going to assume that that dimension is 1 foot below the top of that floor, the top of slab. That's a very typical number that a lot of structural engineering offices use, so we'll use that as a safe number. So here's a cool little tip. Let's go to our Modify tab and let's hit Align. And before we go modifying, on your options bar, let's click Multiple Alignment. Okay. Now our first selection is the destination. So select the top of your slab. And now the next clicks are going to be modifying the bases of the walls that you want to bring down. So I will select this base. You can see I'm just hovering over it and click. Let Revit do its thinking. Let's select this base. Let me orbit using my shift key and the middle and clicking down on my scroll on my mouse. And I'll click that one. And I'll select this one. And remember that these floors need to pour up against a wall, right? So I can select this one and this one. And last but not least, let's bring down this one. All right, so everything is adjusted. Now let's hit escape twice to exit out of that tool. So we just talked about setting the base of these walls a foot below. And we talked about doing as little math as possible, right? So after our adjustment, you can see that the base offset of this wall, I selected it, I selected the wall and I'm in the properties, is -1 foot 9. That matches the offset of the floor. But now we want this down another foot. So sure, you can type in -2 foot 9. However, once you start getting into crazier numbers and more complicated structures, you can use this cool little trick. Change this value to a formula by hitting equals in front of it. Okay? And then at the end of it, say -1 foot. Okay? And now hit OK. And you can see that Revit did the math for you. So if you don't have a nice easy number like -1 foot 9 and you have -1 foot 8 3/4, some crazy fraction, change that value to a formula and then modify it with your easy -1 foot value. So you can see I hovered over and it moved. So now I can either take that 2 foot 9 and apply it to all of these, all right, all of these floors, or all these walls, sorry, or you can select each of these walls with your control key, like that, and do the same thing here, -2 foot 9 or equals 1 foot 9 minus a foot. And it's caught now, okay? So when we're dealing with modifying columns, okay, there's two different ways that you can change the base offset of this column. One way is by manually changing it to -1 foot here, because remember this floor is up high and this base offset is based on the level that it's attached to, which is level 1. But there's also another awesome tool, which is attachments. It's on our ribbon here at the top after you select the column. So if you wanted to go and do the math, it's fine, nothing wrong with that. But there's also nothing wrong with using this attach top base option. And then before you click the floor, select the floor, let's go through our options on our options bar. Revit is communicating with us. So let's say I want to attach the base of this column, the bottom, the attachment style, I'll cut the column for now. The attachment justification, I like using intersect column midline. It just means that invisible center line of that column is attaching to the top of that floor. Okay, so I'll say invisible column center line, and now offset from attachment, this is where I will say -1 foot. Okay? Now after I have all of my options set, you can see at the bottom left-hand corner of your entire Revit window, Revit's communicating. Select the floor, roof, ceiling, beam, foundation, plane, what you want to attach this column to. So I'm going to select the floor. All right. Now I'm going to hit escape twice. And now let's select this column and look under. All right, so there it is. You can see in the properties of that column that the base offset is grayed out, because what governs that offset? The floor now. So now if I need to adjust this floor for whatever reason and it's really 6 inches up, that column attachment will follow. So also important things to note about column behavior with floors. Okay, so let me hit an escape or an undo. Bring this back down to 0. So I'm going to do the same thing with my 3 other columns. So I'll hit my control key and select these 3 columns. I want to attach. Revit remembers all of the settings that we previously input, and I'll select this floor. Okay. But now let's change the visibility of our floor here. So remember, visibility, graphics, VG, and look for floors. And on the transparency column, I'll set a 50% transparency. So I want to see through. Okay. So we've already spoken Revit's language, right? I want to attach the bases of my columns to this floor. Now we have to modify Revit, bend Revit to our will so that we can accurately convey true construction. We look at phasing there. The floor will wrap around those columns. But when we were modeling it and drawing the sketches of those floors, we didn't physically go around the columns. That's a lot of work when you're talking about a bigger project going around each column, right? So all we did is we kept our sketch simple so that now we can do a join order, a switch join order, okay? So now let's go to our Modify tab, our Join dropdown, Switch Join Order. We can do a multiple switch here, and we select the common denominator from those 4 columns, which is the floor, and now you can do a crossing window on just your columns. And now when I escape twice, and I hover over and select our floor, you can see that now the columns are slicing through the floor, accurately depicting construction practice, okay? So always take things in stages. We have set up our model so that Revit understands what we're trying to do with our column attachments, even though columns get physically built before floors do. But floors are very important for Revit, so we're using floors to communicate with columns. After we've done that, now we can incorporate construction practice, what actually goes in first, which is our columns.